can't believe we only have 2 episodes left. Hey, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 23 of Blue Lock. I don't know how. I don't know how. It feels like just yesterday. It feels like I just started this series yesterday, and we're already 23 weeks in, and the only thing that is consoling me and not making me heartbreakingly sad is knowing the fact that they have a movie in process and that they are doing a second season, and that's been announced, so it's at least in the works. That makes me happy, and that I always have the manga I can go back to and catch up with through if the hiatus gets too much. But this is so weird because I'm used to either finishing a series entirely, like Run with the Wind and like Free, or I'm used to a series where I caught up with the anime and I've read the manga and I'm waiting on them to adapt the rest of the manga, like Ace of the Diamond. Or it's a series like Kuroko's Basketball where there were multiple seasons and I was done and I was like, okay, I've seen it in its entirety, right? But this is a totally different experience. I'm not used to a sports anime where I've only got the chance to see one season and now I have to wait. It's a weird feeling and I don't like it. So it's gonna be different. It's gonna be a different experience, and I'm already getting anxious about that. So, but what can we do? So that's all we can do. So yeah, we've got this week and next week, and then we will, put Blue Lock on hiatus. I'm still excited to be in the channel and see all the fan art and everything there because I know that you guys will share some amazing fan art. There'll be lots to discuss, and you guys will be able to talk about the manga chapters coming out. But it is going to be sad. We'll be starting a new sports anime in a couple weeks. And then as soon as Blue Lock Season 2 comes out, though, dropping everything. We're not going to have a poll. It's going to drop everything and I'm going to watch it because I really have come to love this series. It's just different. It's a different formula than any sports anime I've watched so far. Is it my favorite? I still like Ace of the Diamond the most. But Huckleberry. But that's because I've seen like 200 episodes of Ace of the Diamond and I follow those characters on their journeys throughout that series. I feel like I'm just getting to know the characters of Blue Lock, and that's what's so frustrating. I'm just getting to know them, and then we're going on hiatus, so it is frustrating. But Blue Lock's rose up there. I would say of the sports anime, Blue Lock is in my top 5, which is exciting, and I'm excited to see more of it as we go. So yeah. But I do have some comments that I want to talk about, mainly from Wim, who has caught up in the comment sections. Wim talked about how Atoshi, Reen's name, Atoshi means thread master. So Reen's name technically means a cold and distinguished puppet master. How fitting. I did wonder because Sai Atoshi, if Atoshi is thread master, I'm wondering if Sai is like warm or hot-blooded in comparison to Reen is like a mermaid and is cold-blooded, so is Sai like hot and magma related? We'll just have to wait and see, right? Also, I kind of liked, Wim had this discussion saying that Reen was like Kageyama, but I kind of disagree, and I'm going to explain that a little bit. There's a little bit of stuff from Haikyuu, so if you've not watched Haikyuu, you might just skip over through this. I'll put a little thing up there when we're done talking about Haikyuu. But they put a thing up there saying in their comment that Reen was like Kageyama, who was kind of controlling the field. And they started out saying that Reen was like Oikawa, and I was like, yes, that's what I've been trying. That's kind of what's drawn me to Reen, is the fact that they're similar to Oikawa, at least in my mind. And then they kind of shifted to say that Reen was more like Kageyama, but I'm going to disagree with that. I think based on what I know from this series so far, Reen is more like Oikawa. Oikawa was like the conductor of the orchestra, and Oikawa could know what to do with you to make you work, and he could work with you and bring out the best in you, right? Which you could argue that Asagi does the same thing. You can argue that. But I think Reen is more equipped. Reen's personality is like, Reen is like if Oikawa was a cold prick. That's basically it. But my thing is, I think Isagi is more like Kageyama in how Kageyama pushes people to evolve. Like Wim used the example of later on in Haikyuu, Kageyama makes Suki jump for the set. He makes him work for it. Isagi would do that. Isagi makes Baro work. He makes people rise up and evolve to get to his level. Reen is not like that. Reen doesn't make you work. He expects you to be there. And he's like, well, if you're not good enough, then I'm just not going to use you. I'll do it myself. Asagi's not like that. Asagi's not going to just do it himself. He's going to make you rise up there, and then he's going to devour you and do it himself. So I disagree. I think for me right now, Asagi is more like Kageyama the King. Rin is more like Oikawa. But here's the thing, and this is why I kind of like the possibility of Rin and Asagi maybe being on the same team, because in Haikyuu, Oikawa and Kageyama do not get along. They don't get along. They're not compatible. But in middle school, they're forced to play together, and it's like this powder keg. I think it would be really cool. And I always wondered in Haikyuu what it would be like for an older Kageyama who had evolved to be on the same team as Oikawa. And Furudate very deliberately does not do that. They even say in like an extra, they're like, no, they don't get along. We're not going to do that. I think it'd be neat to see what that kind of dynamic would be like. And I think Rin and Asagi could be the chance to see what that plays out as. So we'll just have to see if that ends up happening. But that leads us back, end of Haikyuu spoilers, that leaves us back to the idea of, is Asagi's team going to lose? And if they do lose, is Rin going to pick Asagi, or is he going to go with Nagi? Because I don't think Baro and Shigiri are on the table. So this is one reason why I love Blue Lock, and that is because I can't predict exactly. I can get an idea in my head and I can theorize. I can say, okay, logically this makes sense. But then Blue Lock will do something that I didn't expect. And I'm like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay. So I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. So, but I'm so excited. But y'all, we only have 2 episodes left. So as much as I hate to say it, we only have 2 more times that I can plug my favorite sports anime, and this is one of them. Characters like Asagi and Rin have figured out that they are their biggest competition, and so they end up on a team together as rivals. You know another anime that has 2 characters vying for the same position who develop a rival-like relationship? Why? Sawamura Eijun and Furuya in Ace of the Diamond. So when you're done watching Blue Lock and seeing enough soccer in your life, give baseball and Ace of the Diamond a chance. Now, back to the reaction. I'm going to hope that my dogs are calm. They're being quite loud this evening, so I apologize, but I needed to record this tonight, and to be quite frank with y'all, I couldn't wait. After a cliffhanger like that, how could one wait, right? How could you? So yeah, that's where we're at. But y'all, I'm so excited to see what happens, but who knows? It's the penultimate episode. It seems like the match is about to be over and we're going to have like an aftermath episode, but then what do we do in episode 24 then? So we'll see. So in any case, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right into episode 23 of Blue Lock. And y'all, we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Man, we're not wasting any time, are we? Wow, they were like, nope, you got picked Asagi, let's get off the court, time to go on to the next match, and leave everybody else to deal with the shambles. Oh my god. So I'm not surprised that they picked Asagi. The reasons why Asagi was picked are intriguing. But yeah, it was like Nagi. I think that Nagi put up a really good showing early on in the series, especially for Team Z. I don't ever think that Nagi was really on Rin's radar. I feel like Nagi did a really good job with Team V back at the beginning, and so Team Z were always like, oh my god, Nagi, he'd be great to play with, and that's kind of what encouraged Asagi and Batra to be like, yeah, let's pick him and go with it, right, and set things in motion. But I don't think Rin ever had anything out for Nagi and was like, no. But Asagi, though, we're going to talk about that whole dynamic. Asagi, Batra, and Rin, it hit me the moment that Reen was giving his explanation of why he wanted to pick Asagi, that I was like, oh my God, I know what trio this is reminding me of, and I'm having insane flashbacks to that, and we're going to see how that goes, but I'm going to talk about it. It involves some spoilers to a very old classic series that is not a sports anime, so I'm going to have to frame that in an interesting way, but yeah, I'm going to have to figure out how Whiteboard Kun to say that, but we'll get there. But this was a really good episode. It feels weird because we still have one more episode to go and we're facing this team. Here's the thing. They're gonna lose. They're gonna lose against these 5 actual strikers who are known in the profession. They're gonna lose. And that's gonna be the point, is that Ego just got done explaining at length the whole situation about luck, and we're going to talk about that on Whiteboard Kun here. But Ego just got done having this big old discussion about luck and about how that works. And the first thing that Ego does after having that discussion is say, hey, you guys are the best of the best. You're the best of Blue Lock that they have to offer. You're the first ones out the gate. And now I'm going to make you lose horribly and put you in your place and remind you how far you have yet to go, right? That you still have a lot of ground to tread before you're ready to play with the big boys. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? Because Ego's whole goal is he wants Japan to be better than these other teams. And he's like, well, then you need to play them, realize how good they are, and be like, okay, how do we beat them? And the thing about it is, Asagi is a great character to have in this scenario because Asagi's whole thing is about like reinventing himself and adapting and devouring. So this is a great thing for him. And plus he gets to see, how good Reen and Bachira have worked together and being like, oh, I've got to catch up to these bastards. I'm the one behind now. That's the thing. Asagi was chosen, but he wants to be the one to choose. And it's like, oh, which I like that. We're going to talk about this whole dynamic. It's great. I love every bit of this. Oh my God, y'all. Again, when I tell you who these 3 remind me of, you're going to go, okay. And understand where I'm coming from with my shipping, right? But this whole episode, man, we did not waste any time establishing what happened, that it was just luck, that, yeah, Bachira was on a roll. Bachira was not going to pass it to Reen. He was going to take the shot for himself because he's an egoist. I like that Asagi is like on this devouring train and Bachira's on egoism. Bachira's like, oh, you're being really egoistic, Asagi. I like it. And Asagi's like, I'm going to devour everybody. Want to join me in the buffet? And it's like, okay. But Bachira took the shot and Asagi blocked it. And here's the thing. His right foot, if it had just been a centimeter to left or right, it wouldn't have gone straight to Reen. But I love how Ego's narrating, and Ego describes it as mercilessly and cruelly landing at the feet of the winner. Like, for a hot second, Reen was like, you defeated me. You beat me. And you were my equal. For a hot second there, and I've never had that happen before. So, like, I love that Reen is like, I'm not gonna let you go off on your own. No, that's a bad idea. You don't need to evolve anymore without me watching you. I was like, so yeah, I like the idea. And here's the thing about it with luck too, is that Ego kind of suggests being like, yeah, if the ball had gone a few centimeters either way, it could have been a whole different ball game. But the point is, it didn't. You didn't control it to go in a manner that would have given you the best luck. Instead, it went to chance, and Reen just happened to put himself in the path of the bird shit, and then it just happened to work out for him. And that's how the game's played. And so, yeah, Ego's like, you want to get to a point where you can control how luck works for you. That's what you want to control. You want to make it to where the luck is on your side and you're not at its mercy, right? Because Asagi was at its mercy. And man, the idea of whenever Asagi and them, like, whenever they say that Team Red wins and Asagi just breaks down and just screams, man, I know everybody's called him Eren Yeager, just making fun of him. I don't think that Asagi is like Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. I don't. I really don't. But the moment where he kind of screams in that moment, it's reminiscent of a scene with him in it. So maybe that's where they're getting it from. But man, that sucks. I feel for Asagi. He wanted to beat them so badly. So yeah, we've got our team now, and we see as Asagi, just falling down and screaming is it's so sad. I was like, oh no, Asagi, because he wanted to win so badly, and he believed that they could, and just didn't happen. And what I like about this is that Bachira's like, wow, I had just gotten to this point where I believed I didn't need him anymore, and I could be my own voice. And even after all that, I realized I still want to play with him. I'm still happy. He's like, when I believed I didn't need anyone anymore. And then he's like, and in this world where I stand alone, you came to find me. And then, yeah, he's like, Asagi, and the way that Bachira's eyes softened, because that had been my fear the whole time. My fear going into this episode was that Bachira, was going to be like, I don't need you anymore, Asagi, so I don't want to be around you anymore. It's just going to be me and Rin over here, and you can just forget it. I don't want to pick you. But that's not really the case. No, Bachira is kind of saying that he's like, I now can be my own player alone and have my ego. But he's like, I'm not going to forget the fact that you still, want to meet me halfway. You still want to play against me, and you still want to be by my side. He's like, I'm not going to forget that. He's like, we're going to be loyal. That's going to, that's blood. He's like, I'm all about that. And so I'm glad to see that Bachira isn't going to ignore Asagi, right? And then, of course, at this point, Toki and Aryu, they're so shipping. They're so a ship. I can't believe it took me all this time until last episode to like actually come to terms with it. But yeah, Toki's like all over him, and he's like, was I glam enough for you, Aryu? And Aryu's like, yeah, I guess so, best buddy. And I'm like, oh my god, like they could not be more of a ship. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's like, we did it. He's like, let me savor the glam aftermath. And Toki's like, oh, I'm so sorry. They're actually perfect for each other because Aryu is such a diva and he's so ridiculous. And Toki's just like, do you want me to go like rub your feet while you tell me how glam you are? And he's like, yes, that'd be perfect. They're perfect for each other. It's kind of stupid ridiculous, right? And then he's like, who are we going to pick? And he's like, oh yeah, it's me and you doing the choosing. And Bachira's like, now wait a minute, hold on a second. Don't you guys pick, because we find out that Aryu would have picked Chigiri, but Aryu's reasons for picking Chigiri were purely selfish. He's like, oh, well, he's the most glam, so of course. Dumb reasons. Toki said he would have picked Asagi. So I'm like, okay, all right, fair. I think Toki understands Asagi's importance. But then Bachira's interesting because he's like, now wait a minute. He's like, I can live without Asagi now. That's why I can say this with confidence. So the guy I want, this is the interesting thing. It's like, was Bachira going to say Asagi? Because he says, I can live without him now. He's happy when Asagi is picked. So he's happy when he's picked by Rin, which we'll talk about here in a second. So I was like, either they're eventually going to do one of two things. Either, because Bachira doesn't really follow up on that. So either later down the road in the anime, we're going to get to a point where it's going to come up and Bachira's either going to say one of two things. He's either going to say, one, I wasn't going to pick you because I didn't need you. I don't know why he would pick Baro or Chigiri. It would be Nagi, but I don't know why he would, what his justification would be. So I feel like he's like, either I was going to pick Nagi because either Nagi reminded me that I needed to be myself and not wait on you or whatever. Or he's going to say, once I realized I didn't need you, I wanted you even more because I wanted to play against you and with you on the same team. So I'm going to be happy either way because Bachira seemed very pleased with Rin's call. So I feel like it worked out in the end for Bachira and he's fine. Bachira, he won no matter what, right? Bachira gets like the MVP award. He not only has evolution, growth, emotionally and spiritually, but he still gets to be with both of the guys that he likes. So Bachira is the real winner of this episode. But yeah, we don't get to see what he says. And then Rin's like, no, I'm picking, so shut up. And he's like framed in the shadows with like the aura coming off of him. And Bachira and Toki are like, and Aryu are like, oh, really? And then he's like, no objections allowed. He's like, I'm going to get to pick. It's my choice. Y'all don't get to fight back. And then, of course, we see the four of them in front of them. What's interesting is that Baro and Shigiri and Nagi are all standing up, like just taking a breath. They don't collapse until after Asagi leaves. Asagi is the one who's like literally prostrating himself in front of them, like embarrassed that his team lost and blaming it on himself. And Rin says, that last play now, I was unable to read it. I love it. He's like, this is the first time I felt defeated since I came here. And then he's like, there is now one more person that I need to crush, damn it. Okay, so what Rin is saying is that before, the only person that could beat him was Sai, right? That's what he's kind of getting at. He's like, so other than Sai, the other person that could beat me, get them on here. Sai and Asagi are the ones who defeated him. Now, do I think that roster of people that have beaten Rin is going to increase after next episode? Yes. Because they're facing these incredible strikers. So yeah, I think Rin is going to have a whole host of... I think that's one of the reasons Ego's having them do this whole challenge is he's like, hey... Rin, I know that you were the big fish in the little pond, but y'all need to be brought down a peg. Don't be getting cocky thinking you won this and that you're going to just ease through the rest of Blue Lock. No. So I feel like Rin is going to get a taste of just how intense these other strikers from around the world are. But right now in Japan, his brother and Asagi are the ones that he wants to crush. And do you think that Rin is going to just let somebody that has the capabilities of crushing him go off and evolve on his own? No! He wants him under his thumb. And that's why he's like, I won't let you sink back down. You're going to join me, Asagi Yoichi. You will watch me become the best in the world at my side. So at this point, I'm going to be saying a few spoilers about a series that you may or may not have watched. So I'm going to put it up here at the top, right? And it's going to be listed on here, so you're going to know. But I'm just going to go ahead and put down here Rin, Asagi, and Bachara. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. As soon as he said that, I want you to come and watch me become the best striker by my side. I'm not going to let you become better than me. You're going to watch me get better, and then that's all there is to it. I instantly thought of the series Berserk. Yeah, I was like, oh, Rin is Griffith. That's what this is. Rin is Griffith, and Asagi is Guts, and Bachara is Casca. By that comparison, right? Okay, now caveat. I have only watched the 1997 anime of Berserk, and I've only read up through volume 6 of the manga, so I'm not very far into Berserk. I'm sure there's going to be lots of things as, by the time we come back to season 2, I will have read a lot more Berserk, and we'll probably be able to make even more comparisons. However, the thing that stuck out for me is that Rin wants to be the best. Rin wants to be the best, and he has this purpose, this drive. And the moment he said that he wanted Asagi to be by his side to watch him rise up through the ranks, I was like, well, that's like Griffith telling Guts that he has to join the Band of the Hawk. Guts loses to Griffith, and because he loses, he has to do what Griffith says, and Griffith's like, you're going to rise up through the ranks and come with me. And I'm going to keep my eyes on you, and you're going to work for me, and I'm going to be king. And Casca, aka Bachara, is Griffith / Rin's right-hand man, right-hand woman in that case, and is with them. But over the course of the series, at least in the anime from 1997, Casca and Guts form this relationship like Bachara and Asagi, and Guts eventually gets to the point where he doesn't need Rin anymore, and he outgrows Rin, or Guts outgrows Griffith and goes off on his own. And I think that that's what this is kind of paralleling. I'm sure the mangaka for this has read Berserk. I'm sure. But I feel like Asagi, Rin is like, okay, you join me, and we'll talk about the end of this episode with the match. He's like, you join me, and you're going to be under my thumb, and I'm going to watch you to make sure you don't defeat me again, right? I keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But I think over the course of the series, Asagi is going to get better than Rin, and Rin's going to have to deal with that. Let's just hope that Rin dealing with Asagi getting better is not going to have the traumatic ending that Berserk does. So but that's all I'm gonna say. But this whole time I was just like, it's literally Reen is Griffith and Asagi is Guts. That's, my mind is just like, I was like, oh my god, that's their relationship. Is Bachira and Casca a great comparison? Not the best, but I was like, oh my god. And Bachira's like, okay. And Bachira has tears in his eyes, like, oh, thank God Reen chose him. Like I said, Bachira's the real winner of this episode. Bachira gets the best of everything. He gets to work with the two guys he wanted. They win. They get to advance. He's found his voice, doesn't listen to a monster anymore. Bachira's just having a great season, right? And that's the episode. So we don't get an OP. No OP. That one's done. And Asagi's like, well, why was I picked? I wasn't able to beat Reen. What should I have done? And he tries to go through and figure it all out. And he's like, was it luck? And Bachira's like, hey, Asagi, let's go. You can figure all that stuff out later. And Asagi just doesn't know why he was chosen. Because Asagi is, up until this point, been under the assumption that if you don't win, you're going to get overlooked. And he's like, well, is it because of all the work I've done between the first match and this one that allowed me to get chosen? Yes. And the thing about it is Isagi advanced his skills in such a quick amount of time. Like, he went from Reen not even acknowledging him to wanting him because of his abilities. I'm like, that is huge. And again, we talk about Berserk. In Berserk, you know, this isn't really a spoiler, but Griffith wanted Guts. And that was a big deal, that he's like, I want you. And kind of Reen picking Asagi for the first time is kind of like Griffith picking Guts for the first time. The meaning behind it is similar. So I see the ship. I see it. We'll talk about it here. Don't you worry. But yeah. And then I like that Asagi just can't help but try to cheer his comrades up that he's leaving behind, because that's just Asagi's nature. That's the thing. A lot of people, like I said earlier, want to compare him to Eren Yeager, but I'm like, no, Eren would not have stopped and had this moment of, hey guys, it's going to be okay. I'm sorry that I got picked and you didn't. Eren wouldn't have done that. So I feel like Asagi, he's just trying to be nice. And then Baro and them are like, dude, don't pity us. Don't give us that. Like, you won. You got chosen. Now go on. Chigiri's like, I had to leave behind my man, so you just shut up and keep walking. And Nagi's like, come on. Like, all three of them are like, get out of here. We're going to catch up to you. And what's interesting is they're like, well, cut the crap. You got chosen, and that's the reality. So just shut up and go ahead. That was luck. You got beat. We got beat and you got picked. And Baro's like, I don't want you insulting us by, talking down to us. He's like, any one of them could have gotten picked. It just happened to be Asagi. And then it cuts to Nagi, and Nagi's like, you were the main character after all. I mean, I love the fourth wall breaking. And I love this line that he says afterwards, we're paying the price for being the supporting cast right now. He's like, we couldn't stand out to match you, and that's why you were picked. And Nagi's like, but we're going to get better and come back and get our revenge on all of you, like you did with us and like you did with Reen's team. And we're going to make you, regret not choosing us over Asagi. I love it. It's kind of like, on the surface, I could see somebody watching this show, and especially when Nagi's like, next time we meet, I'm going to crush you, Asagi. And he calls him, he's like, Asagi, I'm going to crush you. And I could see people on the surface watching this show and saying, like, these people are so mean-spirited, and they're all just trying to, like, get revenge and hurt each other, and And that's not really it. It's just the idea of rivalry. Like, this series is all about rivalries, and it's about, like, bettering yourself. And, it's kind of like in anime and storytelling, when you watch two enemies like Sherlock and Moriarty go at it over and over again, and it's like their foreplay. It's like how they develop this relationship. It's their bond. That's the sports anime, literally. And so they're like, we're going to come back and crush you next time. And I like that Sagi's like, good. I want you to. He's like, I want you to catch up to me. He's like, I could not have made it this far without all of you. You guys got me to this point. So he's like, you better catch up. I love it. He basically tells them what they've been told this entire time. And he's like, we'll play together again. And that's kind of the crazy thing. It's like on the surface, it seems like they all want to destroy each other in this rivalry. But the truth of it is they all want to play with one another. But in order to do that in this world, you have to keep rising to the top. And that means knocking others down. And Asagi's like, I know they're going to make it and we'll play again together. It's just a matter of time. Love it. I feel like every team, every set of 5 that come through those gates and faces this hodgepodge team of multiple international players, I think it's to bring them down a peg, and then they're going to come back into the warehouse where Ego's like watching them all and monitoring them and being like, hello, diamonds in the rough. And he's going to be like, wow, see how you faced that international team and got your asses kicked? So that's why you're not ready to advance out of Blue Lock. That's why we're doing this. And now we're going to have the 3rd selection, which is going to be weeding out the ones that are going to be able to play those people again. And then we're going to go from there. So of course, I don't want answers to this question, but my thought process is wondering, are we going to spend part of season 2 figuring out like Chigiri and Kunigami and Reo and them and seeing them and seeing who from that group that didn't make the initial cut make it to the 3rd selection? Are we going to spend time with that? How's that going to work? I feel like we should spend some time on it, but I don't know how much the series is going to dedicate towards it. And then, yeah, they all just collapse. And I like that Baro and Chigiri, they collapse and they're sad and everything. Nagi just falls down. He just collapses entirely. And they're like, we can't let it end like this. And Nagi's like, yeah, we're going to have our revenge. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting seeing between Nagi and Baro and Chigiri who they end up facing next. Because like Kunigami and Reo, they have to face a team and gain a player before they can even face them again. So how is that going to work? So that's the question. Like, you could have a whole 2nd season of just the matches showing who makes it and who doesn't. I feel like they're going to intersplice that in next season, but I don't know how it's going to be done. I don't know how much time we're going to spend on it and what all we're going to do. So then we get to the top 3 plus Bachira and Asagi. I like that Toki's like, oh, sorry, we had seniority. Sorry, is that okay? Toki, I actually don't mind in this episode. I like Toki off the field when he's not having a neurotic breakdown. I get kind of like, I get a little bit of like a neurodivergent vibe from Toki just because he was like talking about soccer terms. He's like, yes, I've memorized all these soccer terms. It's what I just know. The way he said it, I don't know. Something just seemed like that was kind of like a savant thing that Toki has. And I don't know how else to describe it, but I definitely got that vibe. I was like, oh, maybe that's part of it, is that he's neurodivergent and has crippling anxiety. Maybe. But I do like Toki in this scene because he's very kind and he's nice. And he's like, hi, Asagi. That is the one thing I really like about Asagi and Aryu, is them being the top 3 players alongside Reen. I mean, Reen makes up for it in spades with his spite and his like tsundere-ness. But for me, I really have always liked, since the start of being introduced to Toki and Aryu, how congenial they are towards everybody they meet. They're not mean people. They're not bullies. They're actually incredibly nice. Even though Aryu can be glam and Toki can be kind of neurotic, they're actually really kind-hearted characters, and they're really nice, and they just like soccer and are really good at it. So it's like, okay. So yeah, I like that aspect about them. It makes them very likable. And Toki's like, I was going to pick you. And Asagi's like, thanks. And Aryu's like, I was going to pick Chigiri for the glam. He's like, but that heel shot you scored was glam too. I like that Aryu's like just sparkles. He's like, I guess you could stay with us because you're kind of glam. And Asagi's like, okay. I feel like what's interesting is, oddly enough, in comparison to Baro and Chigiri and Nagi, this team might have it together a little bit more. Because then we see Baro at the end, and Baro's like, oh my god. He's like, Asagi was actually the anchor keeping us all together. Asagi was organizing the laundry. Asagi was making sure Nagi ate food. Asagi was helping Chigiri find his things. Now that he's gone, we have to suffer. It's like 2 unorganized people and a neat freak, like person that's really anal about hygiene and all that. Now without their balancer, they're all like, what are we going to do? Which is hilarious. They're going to, you know what? Now Baro and Shigiri and Nagi are going to have to grow because Asagi is not there to be an anchor for them. There we go. But I do feel like in comparison, Aryu and Toki may have their shit together a little bit better. So good for Asagi. Asagi needs a break from being the mother hen of all of them. And then I like that Asagi gives his little bow and Toki's like, oh, you don't have to be formal. Welcome to the top 3. And he's like, oh, but I don't mean to play the seniority card. Don't think I'm abusing my position. Like, oh my God, Toki, I can't with you. But it's super, super cute. And then, of course, Aryu, I like that Toki's, like, neuroticness is balanced by Aryu's glam. Like, he's like, your negativity shall be washed away by my glam. They are perfect for each other. Toki and Aryu, OTP. I'm all on board now. That ship is now sailed. Like, the fastest come-together ship you've ever seen in your life. I'm all for it. I get it now. I'm here for it. Let's do this. Meanwhile, Asagi's like, they're going to be something to get used to. And then Batra says, you said you'd steal me back, but it ended up the other way around. And Asagi's like, yeah, I talked a big game, so sorry about that. He's like, I was kind of lame, wasn't I? And Batra's like, no, it's fine. He's like, being away from you meant I could fight on my own now. And this is the part that got me. This is where I was like, okay, this is why this ship of Batra and Asagi, I'm like, yes, please. Because he's like, yeah, you know what? You said you were going to come get me, but while you were gone, I could fight on my own now. It's fine. And he's like, I was afraid of playing soccer alone, but I was hoping that you would save me from that fate. But now that I've fought alone, I realized that I've learned that the only one who can save me is me. And that kind of brings back that whole moment where Reen wouldn't play soccer with Batra, where he's like, no, I don't want to play with you. You should do it on your own. And I guess you could say in a way that Reen was trying to get Batra to realize that without saying it. I think that was definitely the case. So kudos to Reen for trying to get Batra to like not be dependent on people. He was kind of a prick about it at the time. That's the thing. Like, Reen has good advice. He just comes across it being kind of a jerk. But that's just part of his character, right? You got to melt the ice around Reen a little bit, right? But I like the idea. This is kind of a play on Kuroko's basketball. In Kuroko's basketball, there's a character who says the only one who can defeat me is me. And it's kind of arrogant the way that they say it. And it's intentionally supposed to be arrogant. And they kind of like learn a lesson along the way because of that. But with Batra, it's worded a little different. He's like, the only one who can save me is me. I can't rely upon someone else to dig me out of a pit. I need to be able to do it myself. And I like that. I think that's smart, that you should be self-reliant and self-sufficient. He's like, I believed and forged ahead. And at the end of it, I still found you. That's the thing that gets me, is just like with Batra, he's like, I was able to forge a path, and then you were still there. He's like, that seems like fate. That seems like fate. You were there for me. I feel like this is destiny. We should be together. It's a sign. In that moment, we surpassed Rin for sure. I like the way he says we surpassed him. In that moment, we were above him. And we can do it again, and now we're on the same team together. So it's great. Right? And he's like, thank you, Asagi. Now that I can fight without you, being with you is even more fun. That's what I was trying to get at last episode. I was trying to find a way to articulate what I was thinking. And it's like the shipper in you wants to be like, oh no, don't separate, because then you guys aren't together. But then the silver lining is, once they do separate and they get to be better versions of themselves, then they can come back together and it's even sweeter. And that's kind of like what's happening now, is Batra's like, I don't have to depend on you. So that means we can play together on equal playing field, and it's going to be even better. And I'm like, yes. I'm all here for it. Right? And Asagi's like, oh, I didn't know you had all these feelings like this, but I'm here for it. The way that Asagi looks in that moment is like my shipper heart just explodes. It's amazing. But OT3, We get so much out of this episode. It's amazing. And that's where Batra's like, okay, but if you can't keep up with me, I'm not going to hesitate to leave you behind. And that's kind of what happens at the end of this episode, is that Batra, he's kind of like, you know, this is what makes the OT3, is that Batra is saying, I'm still going to play with the best. And if you can't keep up with Reen, then I'm not waiting on you. I'm going to go over here and play with Reen for a while, and you just come over and see me when you're ready. You know? So even though I don't romantically ship Reen and Batra, they're not my cup of tea that way. I definitely like the idea of this like threesome where Batra's like, me and Reen are going to go over here and have some fun, and you can just come whenever you're ready and whenever you're caught up. Because I don't think Reen, even if Batra likes Reen, I don't think that Reen likes Batra back that way. No. Now, does Reen possibly have a thing for Asagi? Oh, we will talk about that. But do I think he has a thing for Batra? Nah. I think that him and Batra, he's just like, okay, you're cool. I'll let you in the club. It's fine. But, I think the Batra is kind of like, it's like a giant open relationship, basically. And then meanwhile, and Asagi's like, don't get too cocky. And I don't know what the hell is Toki and Aryu even doing up there. Like, what are they doing behind Batra? Are they looking at Reen? They look like they're shocked. What is happening? And then Asagi's like, is it me or does Batra look more mature? Well, yeah, he looks more mature. And he goes to clap his hand and he misses, and Batra gives him like a little head shake. So he's like, well, you haven't changed that much in reality. And then that's when Asagi's like, hey, Reen, how's it going? Why did I lose to you? And Reen's like, huh? Why do they make Reen look like the most handsome character in this episode and in the entire series? Why? Like, every frame with Reen, he looks gorgeous. I'm like, he's just like, what are you talking about? He's like, what was I lacking that I needed to beat you? And Reen's like, a monkey could answer that. It was luck. And then Asagi is thinking of luck as something that's just left up to chance and is uncertain, but Ego has a much different explanation for luck, right? And so what I like about this and the whole idea of luck, which we'll talk about luck right here, it was reminding me of Haikyuu a little bit. There's two characters in Haikyuu, Ushijima and Sakasa, and they have a conversation in the manga at one point where they're like, why are we so good at volleyball? And Ushijima says, it's because of luck. And they kind of just let it hang there, and that's it. They kind of just let it hang there, but in the chapter, and I won't spoil it for you how it's explained, but the explanation for it is kind of like a watered down version of this. A little bit. It's very similar, and I was like, okay, but it's not explained like to the extent that Ego explains it. It's very watered down and kind of like just ambiguous and open-ended, but it basically talks about luck like Ego talks about luck. So they go in this room, right? A hidden element on the field that favors those who act on desire. And the moment they talked about desire, I was like, well, hi, Berserk, we're back. The Berserk comparisons, y'all. I can't. I was like, oh, this hidden element that favors those who act on desire. So let's talk about this element. Element who favors those who act on desire. Here's the thing, if you are pursuing your ambition, then you put yourself in line with luck. And if you do it enough, you can find a way to control luck your way. Now, of course, there's going to be times where that doesn't work. That's the whole thing about luck. But the thing is that you don't want to be at its mercy. You don't want luck to control you. And that's what happened with Asagi in this, right? But Reen's like, I'm going to put myself in the most chances for luck to favor me. And if I do that enough, then eventually my odds will be good and it'll work, right? And if I desire something, then that helps me figure out where to go even more. And he's like, if you can't understand that, then you have no right to live in this world of victory and defeat. He's like, you have to understand luck in order to find a way to navigate through victory and defeat. I love when Reen gets all philosophical while he's extremely hot and wiping away his sweaty brows, right? And the thing about it is, Reen is a year younger than Asagi. The fudge? What? Asagi is a year older than him? Are you kidding? Reen is like massive compared to Asagi. And Asagi's like, I don't understand it. Asagi has the look on his face of someone that like looked at a calculus problem as like the class valedictorian explains it. And he's like, son of a bitch, I don't get it. But why do you get it? You know? And that's when Ego shows up. He's like, please come into this room. Now, what I love about this room is there are at least three giant flat screen TVs. Why? I love that Henri just talked about, like, several episodes ago, she was like, hey, Ego, we don't exactly have the budget to be getting all this shit. Should we be monitoring our funds a little bit better? And he goes like, I want 3 flat screen TVs, Henri, so they can see me to the most maximum effect. Pinky, let's do this. I was like, oh my God, it is hilarious to me that Ego felt the need to put 3 plasma screen TVs in when he just needed 1. But spare no expense. Blue Lock spares no expense. So he explains the world of luck using the metaphor of pigeons shitting on you. And he says, now just shut up and listen. I do like the way the scene is animated. The blue and lighting and everything looks great. I love the moment he's like talking about a pigeon shitting on you. And Aryu's like, oh God, I've never even seen a pigeon, much less been in the line of fire. But then it pans to Reen as he says, it's the worst, right? And Reen's just like, Reen looks like he's had that experience of being shit on and knows what that's like. And that's why he doesn't want it to happen again. And we're going to go back to that here in a moment. He's like, it's the worst, isn't it? And he's like, but when it dropping lands on you, that's when you realize that the ground is covered in it. You just happen to be in the line of fire. So you can call it bad luck when you could have avoided it, but that means you would have noticed things sooner. So is it luck or is it muck? I was like, there's like 5 little blue lock orbs there for reasons. And then he talks about winning the lottery number. And he's like, can we say the one who didn't win had bad luck when the chances of winning are so small to begin with? So he says it only comes to those who put themselves in its path. It's like, it's only bad luck, so you say, if you lose. He's like, soccer is a series of inevitabilities and coincidences. So yeah, I like the way that he explains this, like talking about how inevitably, if you all keep working and you all keep advancing, inevitably you're going to all face people who are of the same caliber on the field. Then how do we determine who's going to win? If everybody is equal playing field, who's going to win? How do we determine that? What's the way to do it? And he says that's where luck and coincidence comes in. That when you get people of equal skill, then it's just going to be a matter of luck and coincidences and determining factors. And that's the whole thing about chain reactions. It's the whole thing about how we work together. He's like, that's when all this other stuff comes into play. And I've been trying to get you all to the point where you're getting on an equal playing field. And now the reactions and luck is going to have to be considered or called into consideration. All these things you've learned here at Blue Lock, when you collide with that of an opponent, that's when luck comes into play. And he breaks down everything that happened up to that moment. And he's like, hey, if Reen didn't slow down, if he actually did slow down, then it would have changed the whole game dynamic, right? It could have changed the whole game dynamic, but he didn't. He went to the place where he knew there would be the best chance for him to possibly score. Did he think he was going to score for sure? He probably didn't know. But it's one of those things like, life, you can just survive by not jumping into the fire. It's like, I think of Garth Brooks' song Standing Outside the Fire, and he's like, life is not tried, it's simply survived if you stand outside the fire. It's like, yeah, if you get in the middle of the flames, sure, you could burn, but you might be able to rise above it. You don't know. So I like the idea that if Reen had just backed off and chose the safe route, they probably would have lost. But if he had to put himself in line to score no matter what happened. He had to take a chance. And he's like, if you're talking about the possibility of the ball becoming yours, that's one thing. And then he runs through all those different scenarios that could have happened. But that spot wasn't good for a striker if he backed off. He had to go into an area where he could take aim at the goal in one action if it happened. He created the luck for himself. He's like, by standing on the shit's bullseye, he revived the possibility of himself scoring. Yeah, it's like he put himself in line for luck and it paid off. And I like the ego says there's a chance that it wouldn't pay off. You just don't know. But unless you try, you're never going to find out. Unless you put yourself out there, you're never going to have the option of it working out. And I like that Ego just has like the coffee cup. The animation with him was a little bit weird in this moment, especially like there's a moment where his neck is really odd. But I just imagine Henri's like, I got you your coffee, I got you your port, I got you your 3 plasma screen TVs. Anything else you need, sir, while you make this dramatic monologue? He's like, there's no doubt that luck was the factor that determined this game. But he says, even if you were to have luck on your side, if you stood by and did nothing, the opportunity would go to waste. And that's it. Yeah. You don't get luck by playing it safe. You have to put yourself in the line of fire. And that's what Reen did, and it paid off. So you guys, like, you lack the mindset to respond to coincidences. So the third selection is all about responding to coincidence. He's like, we've gotten you to this point. We've got you on the teams. Now we need to put you in a situation where you can create your own luck and you can create the victory. And I like that the bird like lands on Ego's shoulders. I just imagine that he made Henri go out and buy a bunch of trained doves to like land on his shoulder for the metaphor. I know it's like digital and it's just like a hologram dove. It's not real, but I loved to imagine the Ego made her spend some of the Blue Lock budget on doves to like go. He's like, it's for dramatic effect, Henri. Let me do this, Henri. And she's like, I don't even know what we're buying anymore. He's like, figure out where the chance may fall and wait for it there. I love that. That ties to the idea of spatial awareness, that you figure out where you need to go to, right? You figure out where you need to go to, and you need to go where the luck is. And then you see if it happens. He's like, you need to use that spatial awareness and foresight that you possess to figure out where are you going to smell this goal? Where is it possibly going to happen at? And then you need to be there waiting for when it arrives. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I love that. That's so good. The goddess of fortune only smiles on those who can sniff it out. And you know what? That's the thing. Asagi said he could smell a goal. So that whole metaphor, I'm like, Ego is talking about smelling out goals and smelling out fortune. Well, that's Asagi's game plan. He's really good at that, right? His aura is a fart, basically, so it all lines up. I also like the idea that to Ego, the goddess of fortune has blue hair. So like Blue Lock. Henri, if you dye your hair blue, you'll have it made. That's the problem. And he's like, soccer is full of luck and coincidences. So are you going to carry on crying about being a lucky break? I love that. I love that one, it also kind of lines up. We're getting more and more on Ego. Like, he talks about all this. Like, what is Ego's past? We don't know. But I like the Ego I love this life lesson that, yeah, you can make excuses and say, oh, it was just luck that they won. It was just a lucky break. And Ego's saying, everything is a lucky break. So that's not an excuse anymore. You need to do something about it. And I'm like, oh my God. I love it. I think it's great. And so then Asagi, he's like, learn to accept the outcome of coincidences and etch them into your mind. It's kind of like what Kunigami told Reo. He's like, etch this into your mind, this loss, and learn from it. And Ego was talking about that, several episodes ago. And he's like, luck only comes equally to those who give their all in the fight. So he's like, if you don't give it your all, then luck is not going to come to you. And I love that Asagi takes everything that Ego says at face value. Asagi is like, so that's how it works. And I like that Rin is like, well, he's not entirely right about everything, but he's right about some things, right? I like that Rin and Asagi and the way that they understand Ego's words and take it in are a bit different. I like that. I like that a lot. He's like, okay. And so he's like, Rin, did you know all of this? And Rin's like, well, I mean, I also had the option of passing up the chance to score, but I didn't do it. He's like, it wasn't an opening I controlled or had created. The coincidence you created just happened to fall to me. And I just went with it. He's like, it was through luck that I beat you. The goal was me accepting that. So he's like, yeah, he's like, I like that Rin acknowledges, he's like, look, you beat me. You got to a place that I couldn't predict and you beat me. But by luck, I got the ball and so I did something with it. And that goal was just me accepting the fact that you beat me, but here we are. I love it. Oh my God, I love that. And then, of course, he has the water surrounding him because he's a freaking mermaid. And so he's like, it was my punishment to remind me that I lost to you. The thing that gets me is that even after this, Asagi is like, it's almost as if Asagi is missing Rin saying like, you beat me. And Asagi's like, I can never beat Rin. I'm like, he just said you beat him, Asagi. Come on now. He's like, the difference between Rin and me is our resolve to accept fate in victory and defeat. I love that, like, the water flowing around him, around Rin in this moment. And Asagi is like, I'm pathetic. I'm like, you're not pathetic, Asagi. Come on. And Ego's just standing up there watching all this, being like, hey, kid, pull it together. And he's like, I thought I had reached Rin's level. And he's like, I thought I had beaten him. And I was like, no, you did say, I remember last episode, I was like, you say that you're devouring him, but not really. But I'm glad Asagi's realizing this at least and, you know, having some self-reflection. And he's like, no, I lost and I got chosen. And I need to accept that fact. There won't be a next time otherwise. I'll add this piece labeled luck to my thought process. And he's like, I'm going to rebuild myself, update the knowledge of my brain in order to beat Rin and become a whole new me. I'm like, oh my God, Asagi. Oh, Asagi's like, fine. I'll just take what I learned and I'll beat Rin one way or another. And Rin's like, okay. And he goes like, cool, glad this is going on. He's like, so you passed the second selection. And so now, you know, you've learned the principles behind creating a chemical reaction. I like that at this point, Ryu has just said, he's sitting on the little globes there. He's just like, I'm tired of standing. I'm going to sit here and twirl my hair. He's like, you've created a chemical reaction by now. So now we have the third selection. And as promised, we're going to hold a training camp with the world's top players. So you're going to play a 5-a-side game against the world 5 in a day. No big deal. And I'm like, what the fudge? Okay. And he's like, frogs in the cage. Now you get to learn about the outside world. I love the idea that Ego is so excited about them getting their asses kicked. I love that he's just like, all right, kiddos. Now we're going to find out how scary the real world is. Hope you're ready. He's got Matchbox 20 playing like in the distance. So yeah, and Asagi's like, this seems all rather sudden. So yeah, so they're in their room now. They all get their own. They now have upgraded to where they have giant beds, which is nice, and a coffee table and a big screen TV. The rooms get nicer. I like that Ryu does like the turban towel. Like there used to be like a towel that would dry your hair really quick and keep it like soft and luxurious. And clearly Ryu has bought one. But they're looking at the top 5. So, okay, we need to talk about the top 5 and write them down because we're only going to see them next episode and that's it, right? So we have from Spain. All right. From Spain, we have Leonardo Luna. What a alliteration name. And I'm assuming that these are like fictionalized versions of real soccer players, I feel, perhaps. So Luna is from Spain, the scion of Royal, this Spanish club. I feel like this is a little bit like volleyball, where it's like the countries that are really good at volleyball are also really good at soccer. Because Spain, I remember, is one of them. Huckabee! No, be nice. Both of you. So then we have the guy from England that looks like he's 30. I thought that all these players are going to be like in their like early 20s, late teens. This man looks like he's 34. It's like, what? Adam Blake, the goal junkie. Okay. So we have from England, we have Adam Blake, who is called the goal junkie, which means he likes scoring goals. So he likes scoring goals. He's probably very egoistical. Yeah, so Adam Blake, who knows some really good English, although he sounded Australian, but we'll talk about that in a second. Then we have Baby Freckles. I love Baby Freckles. Give me some Argentina love. They probably know Oikawa. They probably know Oikawa a lot. So yes, we have from Argentina, we have Baby Freckles, who is freaking adorable with his rainbow hair. Pablo Cavazos. I freaking love Baby Freckles. Give me this child. He looks like the love child of Oikawa and Shoyo. Is this a thing? Pablo Cavazos. Love him. So cute. The world-class, what do they call him? World-class free kick taker. Okay, so he's like a wide shot. So free kick. Okay. Free kick. Okay, so that's reminding me a little bit of Kunigami, Baro, Reen. Okay. Then we have from Brazil, lots of South American teams, which it's soccer. The heavy tank. He reminds me of a character from Kuroko's Basketball that plays on Akashi's team, who's Nebuya. It reminds me of Nebuya. Dada Silva. So Brazil. We have Dada Silva, and he is the tank. Well, that is our equivalent of who's going to face Toki. Toki is going to face Dada, clearly. And then we have the one in the middle. Yeah. Yeah, they're like, these are the world's best strikers. And Aryu's like, are you some kind of soccer facts nerd? And he's like, yes, ask me anything. It was that point where I was like, is he a little bit, like, he's just like, yes, ask me anything you want to know. And Aryu's like, I don't know if that's glam. And Asagi's like, what a lineup. And then there's the guy in the middle. And they're like, wait, what about that one guy? I like that Bachira's like, well, I'm excited. I'm also scared. But he's happy saying it, right? He's like, who's the guy with the shaved head in the middle? And that's when we get him, who is from France, the child prodigy. Oh, imagine that. Julian Loki. All right, so from France, we have a Julian Loki, who is the prodigy. Okay, and he's 17, so he's the same age as them. He's the youngest one of the group, right? Okay, so if we're looking at the 5 here, I would imagine that Silva is going to take on Toki. I imagine Silva's going to take on Toki. That seems most legit. Child prodigy, I feel like they're going to be either with Reen or Isagi. Maybe against Reen or Asagi. I feel like Reen, though. I feel like Loki's going to want to take on Reen, right? So we're just going to put him there. We're going to put him there for now, right? Having another rivalry. We'll talk about that in a second. And then Baby Freckles, I feel like that's a good matchup for Bachira. You've got like the kicker, so the free kicker. And then the goal junkie, I feel like Luna would maybe go with Aryu. They both seem kind of glam. And maybe Blake would go with Asagi. I don't know, because a gold junkie, Asagi, like, wants to devour things, and a gold junkie, like, junk food. I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see the dynamic we get next episode, because we only got, like, a tiny little bit this one, so I don't know what else we're going to get. We'll see, but Julian seems like a rival for Reen, and he's the French League's new superstar, which kind of goes alongside Sai. We'll talk about this here in a minute, but yeah. And, oh, he's just 17. He's a national team player, and he's only 17. Mm-hmm. And Aryu's like, oh, well, defeating him would get my name out into the world. And I'm like, oh, Aryu, you sweet summer child. So then they're like, where's Reen? And Batra's like, he always goes off on his own at the end of the day to do his meditation and stretching. Okay, show. You all like Reen because of all the fan service that they give us of him. This entire sequence of him doing yoga, this entire sequence was like fangirl, fan central. It's like, do you want fan shots of Reen shirtless doing yoga? Do you also want Asagi being precious and shippable with him? I get it now. I get it. I also like that, of course, Reen like meditates and he's like keeps this calm serenity around him. I like it. I like that of all the yoga mats, he chose the one that matches his aura. That was nice too. But our boy Reen getting his stretch on, and then I love that Asagi's like, I can do this too. Asagi's such a dork. I love him. I love these, like, he's like, I can do the same things you can do, Reen, but I'm not going to be shirtless. It's so cute. Like, I love it. I love this ship dynamic where Reen is like doing something. He's like, what are you doing? And Asagi's like, I'm trying to imitate you, man, because I got to catch up. We're rivals. And Reen's like, okay. It's so cute. It's adorable. I love it. And I love that Reen's kind of like, but you don't need to do the same thing I'm doing. Don't you have your own thing that makes you special? What are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to catch up to you. This is pretty painful, though. He's like, Baka. He says something different than Baka, but he's like, well, what are you doing this for? And I like also that Reen is just a bigger guy than Asagi. Interesting. And he's like, oh, do you do this every day? And of course, Asagi, you know, on the outside, this seems so sweet and innocent. Asagi's like, I just want to get to know you, Reen. I want to get to know you. And then once they get on the field, like in 10 episodes, Asagi's going to be like, I was doing it all to eat you alive. And Reen's like, well, what if I do this every day? What do you care for? And he's like, if you're going to be a pest, get out. And Asagi's like, fine, I'm not leaving. And that's when he's like, I love that Asagi has like no shame. He's like, hey, here's some like miscommunication stuff that could like be a hindrance to our relationship. How about I bring it up right now? And I'm like, do it. Inquiring minds want to know. And so Reen said that crushing Itoshi Sai is everything to me in soccer, which saying your brother's name formally is a thing. And so Asagi's like, yeah, I've been wondering this for a while, but why do you have this beef with your brother? Are you guys on bad terms? And I like that Reen goes, huh? He's like, oh, well, it's just that, you know, you kind of like made a big deal about saying it was like your one goal to crush your brother. I just figured I'd ask about it since it seemed to be like a major MO of yours. And then Reen's like, huh. He looks back and thinks back. This shot is so weird. One, it looks like it's on a private soccer field. Like their family had a private soccer field in the mountains where it's snowing. That part's weird too. The one thing that doesn't make sense about the scene is why the hell does Sai have a suitcase in the middle of a soccer field? Because it's suggesting that he brought the suitcase out to the soccer field, was like, I'm going, bye, and then just left Reen. Like, what is the context here? We don't get it, and I'm sure we'll get it later. But yeah, so we see a younger Sai and a younger Reen. They look really young in that shot. They look like they're like 12. So I'm assuming this is 4 or 5 years ago. What is up? And that's so interesting that Sai is the older brother, but he looks so much smaller than Reen there. And he's like, not really. I don't have a beef with him. It's an awkward yet healthy relationship that will fix itself if I beat him. I'm like, that doesn't sound healthy. He's like, oh, it's just awkward. It's an awkward yet healthy relationship that will fix itself if I beat him. Let's break that sentence down. Awkward relationship. Okay. So you have an awkward relationship with your brother. That's fine. I have a brother. It can get awkward sometimes. I totally get that. Yet healthy. That makes sense too. Sometimes, you know, your siblings and you don't get along. You don't quite gel. So you have an awkward relationship, but it's healthy. You guys aren't trying to kill each other. It's fine. He's suggesting that, you know, him and his brother, they don't talk. They're kind of estranged, but they're not like out to kill each other. But then it's that line that will fix itself if I beat him. That's the part that throws the whole thing off, because it's saying, well, we have this kind of awkward relationship, but it's fine, but I'm going to fix it. I'm like, if it's fine, you don't have to fix it. If it's healthy, there's no fixing it. So you saying you need to fix it means there's something not healthy about it. And he's like, and the only way to fix it is if I beat him. So that opens up, that one cryptic line opened up like a whole can of worms of, wait, what? And we're not going to find out this season. Son of a bitch. We get a little taste, and that's all we get. And I like that Asagi's like, oh, well, that's awfully stoic. That sounds very stoic. He's like, it sounds like cryptic as hell, but okay, you don't want to tell us about it. Fine. And he's like, I do feel like sticking with you will make me stronger. I like my little shipper heart. I'm like, oh, Asagi's like, I want to get to be with you a little bit more, Reen, and we'll get to be a better ship, you and me, right? And Reen's he's like, you're my rival, Reen. And Reen's like, okay. And I kind of like this. I feel like in that moment, Reen's like, I've never had a rival before. I've never had somebody that wants to rival me. So it also reminds me about, other than Berserk, this relationship reminds me a lot of, which is what I was hoping was going to happen. And I talked about this at the end of last episode. It reminds me a lot of Sawamura and Furuya from Ace of the Diamond and Miyuki. Bachira's Miyuki. Bachira has the best of both worlds. Bachira's like, all right, this really does remind me of Miyuki and Sawamura and Furuya. Rin is Furuya, except if we're honest, I do think Rin is a little bit more all-rounded than Furuya, but you'll have to watch Ace of the Diamond to see what I mean. But it's like Rin is Furuya, and Bachira is like Miyuki. In the role of the relationship. Character-wise, these characters are nothing like the Ace of the Diamond counterparts. Isagi and Sawamura are probably the most comparable, but they're still different. So you have Sawamura and that. So my thing is, in Ace of the Diamond, and this is not much of a spoiler because it happens at the very beginning of the series, Sawamura at the beginning of Ace of the Diamond doesn't really get to hang out with Miyuki as much. He has to go train with somebody else. And meanwhile, Miyuki and Furuya train a lot. And that kind of feels like this, where Bachira has gotten trained with Rin more, so they've kind of developed this little dynamic. And now Asagi's being inserted back into the dynamic of the group, kind of like Sawamura. And Sawamura noticed, like, oh, hey, Miyuki, you and Furuya have this relationship. Well, I want to be in on that. And that kind of seems to be the case with Asagi and Rin and Bachira at the end. Of course, in Ace of the Diamond, it's Miyuki and Sawamura. So for me, it being Bachira and Asagi, I'm all about it. But yeah, I like that Rin is like, okay, he's like, to me, you're not anything, let alone a rival. And Asagi's like, what are you talking about? He's like, this guy's you're younger than me, right? Well, how rude. Rin also kind of acts a little bit like Koshu from Ace of the Diamond, a little bit. But Koshu in Ace of the Diamond ends up becoming like Sawamura's biggest fanboy. So, sure. But he's like, it's true that in the game, in that moment, I lost to you, but that will never happen again. And I love that he's doing like the one arm push up, and he's like, well, this isn't even a yoga pose. Now you're just showing off. And he's like, yes, this is the you're never going to beat me pose. And I love that Asagi's like, you bastard. He's like, I know I'm not there yet, but someday I'm going to beat him. Don't underestimate me, you hear? And then he falls into him and he's like, son of a bitch. I love that. I think that is so funny. So yeah, yes. I'm here for Asagi and Rin's relationship developing. I love the idea that it's basically like Ace of the Diamond in the sense that Asagi's like, yes, I'm not gonna beat you yet, but one day I am. And that reminds me so much of Ace of the Diamond, and I love that series. So if Asagi and Rin develop this rivalry like Sawamura and Furuya have, I will be one very, very happy camper. I can tell you all that now. So yeah, and to think, I love that we get to go back to the moment where that goal is missed, and Asagi's like, wow, I went from us missing that goal, me passing it to somebody missing the goal, to me actually getting to play with the world's best players and developing as a person. And he's like, I can't just sit around. I have to practice. And I like the Bachira's like, well, I'm going to join you. So yeah, I love it. It's so cute. And he's like, the monster inside me is gone. He's like, now I am the monster. I'm not listening to the monster's voice and looking for the monster. I am the monster now. And I love it. He's like, now it's gone. And I'm listening to my own voice playing soccer. And the whole point of me coming to Blue Lock and meeting you, Asagi, that was this. And it's like, again, my shipper heart is content. I love this. And I love that Asagi's like, he's still strange, doesn't make a lot of sense, but he gives me courage. Yes. I love it. I love it so much. And so then we just cut straight to, we have the ED, and then we cut straight to the match. The third selection battlefield. Why not? And we have these characters with their blurry auras. Silva looks like he's fun. I love Baby Freckles' design the most. It's great. Luna looks glam. By far. Adam Blake is interesting. I can't quite place him yet. But by far, Loki is like the Reen equivalent, right? And so then we actually get these characters speaking in English. It's great. Sports anime has a very interesting history of characters speaking English. Freeze is the most endearing. Of the ones I've heard, Free is the most endearing. Free's English is basically Australian. I love it. It's adorable. It's so cute. Miyano Mamoru is good with English, so it's great. Miyano Mamoru is actually really good at speaking English, so his is actually really, really good. But the English voice actors they have to play the non-Japanese characters, it's just endearing. It's very cute. Ace of the Diamonds is awful. Ace of the Diamonds is awful. Their English speaking is terrible, and I'm sure that Japanese voice actors, when they hear Western audiences try to do Japanese accent, I'm sure they think the same thing, but it's just not good. Kuroko's Basketball is kind of a little bit cringy, but it's not as bad. Kagami's in Kuroko's Basketball is pretty good. But Akashi's, no, I'm sorry. Sorry, my dude. And then this one, the Blake guy sounds Australian, so I don't know what to make of it. He's supposed to be British, but hold on just a second.
The Japanese on him.
No, he sounds Australian. Just from that, I was like, Australian, but no, he's supposed to be from England. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. And it's like, oh, you lost the bet. And so I like the idea that Aryu knows a little bit of English because he listens to Western music, so he can kind of hear what they're saying. But Reen can speak English, which is interesting. Reen can speak English, and he doesn't let them talk about them. Now, I don't know. The Blake guy, Silva kind of suggests that he's a womanizer because they're saying, oh, you're going to go buy some women. I'm like, is he suggesting that Blake is going to go get prostitutes? What is happening? I was like, what? Like, he's like, oh, you're going to spend your money on women. I was like, is he going to go buy some prostitutes? What is happening? I was like, what? Oh, strange. But suggesting he's a womanizer. Okay. And these are like, halfway adults. He's like, you're going to spend it all on women. And he's like, shut up. I'm like, what is happening? He's like, you came here to work too. And then I like that Baby Freckles, Cabazos, is like, I just want to go to Harajuku. It's like, I love this kid. And then Reen's like, is this game a part-time job for you? And then I like Asagi, and they're like, oh, he can speak English. Look at this. I like Batra says respect. Yes. So yeah, Dada Silva. I just want to earn some extra dough. And then I like that Reen's like, look, I'm going to crush you. Reen is like, looks terrifying, right? Absolutely terrifying. As he says that this is not just a game. Again, what is Ego throwing at these people money-wise? But here's the thing. So he's like, your little Japanese sightseeing trip is going to turn traumatic. Which is just like, it's a pretty threatening thing to say. And so then Luna's like, okay, that's enough. You three are acting like children. And he's like, you're Rina Toshi, right? He's like, I heard about you from Ego. And he's like, you're that guy. You're Sai's little brother, right? And that gets him pissed. He's like, he made a name for himself at one of the Royale's subordinate teams. So here's the thing. What's interesting here is there's a lot to unpack with this statement. So he's saying that Sai, that his brother, if we get this right, he's saying that his bro, so I may be wrong. This Asagi, Reen or Asagi could be with Loki. That could be. I'm going to say Aryu is now going to be with Blake, the womanizer. And I'm going to say Reen or Asagi is now going to be with Luna, right? So, because he says here that Sai was on the subordinate team. So you can look at this one of two ways, right? You could look at this one of two ways. Either you could look at it as Reen is feeling really upset and unhappy because you could look at my video's messed up again. Curses. You could look at it by saying that Reen is thinking that he's in his brother's shadow, which I kind of feel for Reen if that's the case. I feel like Reen does have a little bit of an uphill battle because of his brother's name. His brother has a reputation, I'm sure, and Reen, part of him becoming Japan's next top striker, is going to be getting over the fact that his brother has notoriety. He's the younger brother. He's in his brother's shadow, and he's going to have to deal with that. And that does suck. I hate that for Reen, because Reen wants to make a name for himself. He doesn't want to be tied to nepotism or to his brother. He wants to be his own person. But there could also be the fact that maybe he's fighting for his brother. Maybe he's like, because here's the thing. Sai, back from what we know about him from the very beginning, seemed to be like, yeah, I play for these international teams, but they're just like, whatever. And I guess I'm just going to play for Japan, but they're like, whatever. And are we any good? It seems like, I don't want to say Sai has settled, but it seems like Sai maybe doesn't have the passion that he once had with Reen. And I feel like Reen's like, you don't have the passion for soccer. You're not treating this seriously enough. You're getting to be famous, and what are you doing with it? So I feel like Reen wants to beat him and become the more famous of the Itoshi brothers, to be like, I'm going to give soccer a good name for our family and for Japan, and you can go do whatever. Again, it has a very, very Akuya and his brother, Naru's vibes. But it has, like, in Free, Akuya and his brother, they kind of have the same vibes that I feel that maybe Sai and Reen have, just on a more extreme level because it's Blue Lock. So they face them. They do rather well. They managed to score a goal. I know that people that ship Bachara and Reen were like, oh, Bachara and Reen working together and Asagi's getting left behind. But again, like I said, it's like Bachara is being like Miyuki from Ace of the Diamond, and Bachara's saying, okay, Asagi, you got to catch up, because otherwise I got someone back here who's going to do what I want, and they're going to play with me on equal terms. So catch up, or I'm going to give the ball to them. And I think that's going to be their back and forth for the rest of this season and moving forward. So I've talked for over an hour about this episode. I feel like I talked all over the place, but I love this episode. I really am glad that Asagi is with Reen and the others. I am loving the relationship that is developing between Reen and Asagi and Bachara. OT3, I'm here for it. I like Toki and Ario. I like them. And now I feel bad for our poor guys, our poor Reo, Kunigami, and Reo and Kunigami, but then Shigiri and Baro and Nagi. I'm hoping by the end of next episode, the show at least gives us some kind of preview as to what's going to happen with them next season, but they may not. They may just focus on this game, and then I feel like Loki seemed interested in Reen. Loki was like, okay, I feel like Loki's going to show off next episode, and so is Baby Freckles, and so is some of the other ones, and I feel like they're going to end up trouncing our poor Blue Lock team, and then Ego's going to be like, okay, time to pick up the pieces and get ready for the third selection. Now that you know what it feels like to get your ass kicked, now we're going to start from square one. Just like we did in the first selection and just like we did in this one. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. I can't believe we only have one episode left. That's insane to me, but that's where we're at. So I'm excited. I look forward to the next episode, and we'll talk more about it next week. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back real soon with the final episode of season 1 of Blue Lock. Bye.